Failla holding this country together on a big Tuesday. Joining us now in the huddle. A lot of people consider him the Emmitt Smith of the Senate. I'm talking about South Carolina Senator Tim Scott. Hey, man.
Hey, Jimmy, how are you, man?
The Emmitt Smith of the Senate. Am I giving you a big head here?
That was the highest compliment you can give a Dallas Cowboy fan, as you know.
You ain't kidding. I was buttering you up. You want to know why?
Because you get hard questions, yeah.
Well, yeah, there's that. I understand you were out in Arizona for the Super Bowl, so I just want to start with the most obvious question, which is, should we be glad that NORAD didn't shoot down Rihanna during the halftime show?
Well, we should, number one. She was pretty high up there, and certainly, thankfully, the administration wasn't paying attention. So the good news is that, unlike most flying objects, she was safe.
Oh, that's crazy. Did you guys get briefed yet in the Senate on this? Do we know anything?
We did. I would just simply say that what we know is that the administration should be sharing more information, not less information, about the challenges that we face or the lack thereof. The one thing that the American people have a hard time stomaching is so little information or a slow drip of information over a long period of time. This is really over 2 weeks old now, and we have so little information that makes it very difficult for the American people to have trust and confidence in this administration.
Yeah, I would agree with that. We're talking to South Carolina Senator Tim Scott. Do you think on some level we're demonstrating some type of weakness or, I don't know, maybe message mismanagement by not putting the president out in front of this to speak to it?
I do believe that the country is better off, and frankly, the world is better off by having a more positive, powerful, authoritative leader standing up and giving us clarity and not having spokesfolks go out there and say what they're going to say based on written statements. I think we would hope that the President of the United States would want to speak on this important topic, as this is the first time we've had this kind of occurrences in our airspace. So his lack of speaking says volumes.
I think the world has the same takeaway. And it's funny because we talk a lot in sports metaphors, and sometimes you've heard a quarterback described as a game manager, meaning they don't want him to make big plays, they just want him to not turn the ball over and limit his touches. I mean, would you say we have a game manager as a president in that they're minimizing his role in the offense?
Well, I would not perhaps give him the credit of being called a game manager because I think someone else is doing that part as well. But I will say this, that in every instance we've seen recently, the President of the United States seems to have a weak posture on a global stage, and that only emboldens our adversaries and our competitors. If we want to have different results, we have to have a different posture on the global stage. The world stage is a big one, and it requires strong, powerful leadership from the President of the United States, and we're not getting that now, and frankly, we haven't had that since he went into office.
Yeah, no, I would agree with that, and there are a lot of people trying to change that posture for this country. I got out of bed this morning to news that a South Carolina politician had entered the presidential race. I thought, surely it's my first guest on the show today. But it sounds like it was former Governor Nikki Haley. But there's a lot of rumors. But the question I want to ask you is because I know you haven't, you're savvy enough guy. You're not just going to spit it out on my show. But have you given any thought to what your nickname would be if you entered the race and Trump was tweeting about you?
Yeah, I'm sure it's not Great Scott. So I was.
Well, at least I know what your own nickname is for yourself. I love it.
I saw that in one of the news articles, and I would say that the Great Scott is my mother, who did a fabulous job raising two sons, and to her, happy Valentine's Day. But more importantly, to the American people, we are craving leadership. And I mean from upon high. And we get great leadership from the Father in heaven, but we need strong presidential leadership, and the lack of the presidential leadership has led to the highest inflation in 40 years, gas prices that are disturbing and challenging, and frankly, for single mothers like the one I just mentioned who raised me, a 40% increase in gas, a 20% increase in electricity, and a 20% increase in the cost of food is a disaster, a crisis. And for our seniors sitting there on fixed incomes trying to figure out how to make their ends meet, this is a travesty. We deserve better.
That's a great point. We're talking to South Carolina Senator Tim Scott. It's funny because, think of egg prices. We got inflation numbers today.
Yes.
Eggs are up 70%. So do you remember those old, engagement commercials where the girl would say, he went to Jared? Okay.
Right, yes.
Eggs are so expensive now. It's like he went to Whole Foods.
And Jimmy, to your point, I saw an article last week that said that eggs in California are not surprisingly higher than the national average. Of course, it's California. $10 for 12. I figured it was for 22, but it was just for 12.
Yeah, that's crazy. Go ahead.
$10 for eggs. And think about in New York, it was 70% increase for lettuce.
Yeah.
I'm thinking about people who work hard every single day, barely making the checks meet. Here's their quandary. Do I keep the electricity on? Do I heat my home? Do I put gas in the car? Do I have a little extra love in the lunchbox for my kids?
Yep.
These are hard decisions for everyday Americans who today understand the failure of this administration like they haven't in a very long time.
No, I would agree with that. That's why the only other point I would make is when you see things in the condition that they are, okay, because we're also hearing, the IRS is going to start working on tip compliance for waiters and waitresses.
Yes.
These are the people getting hit the hardest. Can you imagine now the IRS is knocking on your door after a double shift at Denny's?
Well, one of the things I said, Jimmy, is that the IRS says that they won't target anybody under $400,000 a year. Can you please show me a waitress making $400,000 a year in tips? I really want to know where she's working, by the way, or where he's working. It just doesn't happen. Truth of the matter is the CBO and the Joint Economic Committee came to the same conclusion that $20 billion or more will come from people making less than $200,000 a year. Said differently, every single one of us should be afraid of the IRS, and we are. No one gets giddy when they see the letters IRS in their mailbox. They just don't get giddy.
No.
And even Kansas City fans are pretty unhappy about the IRS even today. So the truth of the matter is that we need solutions for the American people, and it's not a bunch of fees that will be eliminated by the president having fee control, income control, price control. Mm-hmm. It sounds more like socialism than free markets and capitalism that led to the lowest level of poverty, frankly, in the history of our country just a few years ago.
That's true. But be careful, because you could be running against the guy who pushed those policies in a few months, if my instincts serve me correct, Senator Scott.
Well, there's no doubt what we should worry about is the mission, not the position. I think titles are wonderful. The matter is that I was blessed by conservatives who had a mission of restoring hope in the hardest hit parts of South Carolina, and I was one of the beneficiaries of the Chick-fil-A story and the Chick-fil-A model. I want to share that everywhere I go.
All right, listen. Pro answers, Tim Scott. You lived up to your Emmitt Smith billing all the way. For a minute there, I thought you were going to take a Michael Irvin turn, but you kept it legit. Good job.
Well, God bless you. And we should have caught that ball when the Green Bay Packers played the Cowboys a couple years ago. It was not a catch. We should have won that game, period.
He's not taking it. I'll see you soon.